Hi guys, it is April from Getting Hygge With It. Today we're here to do my January wrap-up. So I'm sharing the best and the worst that I read in January. Let's get into it. So I have a little baby girl right beside me. She's joining me for this wrap-up. So this might be a stop and start kind of thing. We shall see how she does. I've got a bottle here. So I feel like that might help matters, but you never know with a baby, a 5-month-old. I read 9 books in January, which is the most I've read in a given month in months, and it was a pretty amazing month, honestly. So I'm happy to report that I had no 1-star reads. So that's a good place to start. Nothing was horrendous, you know, but I am getting tougher on the books that I read. I'm doling out more 2 stars. So I've got 2 2-star books that I want to share with you. The first is The Hiding Place by C.J. Tudor. This is a thriller, and it is, I think this is the first book that I read this year, so this could have made me feel like, you know, it was going to be another horrible reading year, but it's okay. It turned out to be a good reading month. In any case, this is a thriller about a man who goes back to his hometown after years and years of being away. He goes back as a high school teacher, and he's there to kind of sort through the past. His younger sister went missing when he was younger, when he was a teen. And apparently the worst day that he had was the day that she came back. This was not a bad book. I need to be clear. I read The Chalk Man and really liked that. What I struggled with when I read this book was C.J. Tudor seems to really like Stephen King. This had a lot of nods to Pet Sematary, and The Chalk Man had a lot of nods to it. And I didn't mind it in the first book, but now in the second book, it made me feel a little bit weird. Like, is C.J. Tudor only going to be doing books that are inspired by Stephen King's books? I don't know. And so because of that, I just felt like I need something a little more original from this author. She does a really good spin on these books by Stephen King, but they're still inspired by something that already exists, and I prefer her to be just a little bit more inventful. So she has just come out with a new book called The Other People. I think Kayla from Books and Lala has just started a book club, and this is her first book for that book club, is The Other People. So I'm interested to hear what other people have to say about it, and whether any of them notice that it's also inspired by Stephen King. And if it is, then I'm just going to be, I think, done with this author until she does something original. Like, completely original. It was not bad. Like, it gave me the heebie-jeebies and all of that. Like, it was fun. But it just felt a little bit like something I'd read before-ish. So that's The Hiding Place. I got 2 stars. Another book that I gave 2 stars that I was really surprised by is The Confessions of Franny Langton. Now, The Confessions of Franny Langton is by Sarah Collins. And this follows a young black maid in the South in, I think, the 1800s. Yeah, so this takes place in 1826, and we follow her when she is being tried for the murder of both her employers. And we meet her on the stand when people are testifying against her and saying all sorts of horrendous things about her. And then we also meet her and her actual story. She tells us her actual story. This did give me some Alias Grace vibes, which I liked. It also gave me some Jane Eyre vibes, which I liked. But I struggled with believing the story itself and the relationships within the story itself. She is very close with her mistress in this, and I just didn't believe that relationship really. I also didn't believe her hatred for certain people in the book, that she had every right to hate certain people in the book, but I didn't believe those relationships. I didn't believe her feelings. So I guess I just never really felt close to Franny. And that was unfortunate. I really wanted to feel more for Franny and her plight. She's on trial for murder, you know? And so I just expected more out of this book. It also felt like it was dragging a little bit. I listened to this on audio, and I think the audio was fantastic. So it wasn't the audio's fault. That can happen sometimes. Maybe it just wasn't the book for me. I can't remember who it was, but someone mentioned that this was very, very much inspired by Jane Eyre, and that she wanted to do a retelling of Jane Eyre if Jane Eyre was a Black woman in the same time. So maybe I struggled because she was trying to force fit a story onto a story. I don't know. I don't know what the issue was that I had with this exactly. Not a bad book. Emma Donoghue loved it. Lindsay Fay loved it, who wrote Jane Steele. So I don't know, but it just did not work for me the way that I wanted to. That said, I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it. Okay, so that's it for the 2 stars. Now we're moving on to the 3-star, and I only had 1 3-star, and that was Cosy. This is a very, very short little book that I listened to on audio in the span of like 2 days. Honestly, I could probably have listened to it in the span of like 1 afternoon, because it's about 2 hours long. But this is about the British art of coziness, essentially. It's very hygge in nature, but a British version of that. And so this author talks about how the British hunker down in the winter time and in, you know, like rainy season to get cozy. And she talks about the importance of tea and lighting a fire and socks. And I really did find it very, very cozy. I really did enjoy it. I think this should have been longer than it was. And there's also a little bit of a hate on for hygge in this book that I didn't expect. I didn't think was very necessary. I think she could have just talked about the cozy things that Brits do without putting down the Danes. But I did really like it. I thought the tone was really funny and did make me feel cozy. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. Next, we're moving into my 4 stars, and I have 2 of those. The first is Before We Were Yours by Lisa Wingate. I really enjoyed this book. This is about a group of siblings in the South in the 1930s, the end of the 1930s. They're stolen away, literally kidnapped from their home. Their mom and dad have to go to the hospital because their mom is giving birth to a baby, and they stay home, and they are kidnapped and brought to the Tennessee Children's Home Society orphanage. And this actually did happen. This woman named Georgia Tan actually existed and actually did kidnap children from their homes, and then essentially told very rich and wealthy families that, you know, these are orphans and they need you to save them for a price, of course. And so hundreds and hundreds of children were snatched from their homes and given to other families. And no one really made a big stink about this, which is very surprising. Like, she continued to do her nasty work until like 1950, which is very long to do a lot of damage to a lot of families. So in this book, we're following 5 siblings, I want to say. Is it 5 or 4? In any case, they're taken there, and it is their story of them and what they go through. And at this orphanage, there's a lot of abuse and the children are not treated properly. I really enjoyed that storyline itself. It was very hard to read and very sad. I didn't cry, but it was still really sad. The characters I felt really close to, and it's interesting because you know that you're gonna find out who is separated from whom, who found each other as you were reading this. But I liked that there were some loose ends because I think that's more realistic, that some of these kids would just disappear and would never be heard from again, because I really think that's important to explore. I think it was important to do that in here because of the nature of this case in true life. This also has a modern day storyline where we meet a woman who has gone home to help her dad, who's a senator, or he's running to be a senator. And she is very close to her grandmother Judy, and she meets a woman when she goes to an old age home who really impacts her, and the storylines connect, of course. And I enjoyed that storyline. I will say that there's insta love in that storyline, and I found that character a little too prim and proper and perfect. And I liked that the other characters had a little bit of complexity to them, and I felt like she was just good, period. And there wasn't a lot of depth to her, and I wish there was a little more depth to her. But I did really enjoy this. I think Lisa Wingate wrote a nonfiction book after this about this whole Tennessee Children's Home Society orphanage. So if you're interested in learning more about the reality of the situation, you can read that. Oh, one more thing about this book. I was concerned that they weren't going to show the people who adopted these children in a favorable light, but I was happy to find that they covered that well, because I was worried that infertility, that this is a sensitive topic to me. I was worried that they were going to portray people who are infertile as being villains, because that can happen a lot in fiction. And this made me happy that that did not happen here. So yes, just wanted to mention that in case that's something that's sensitive to you as well. Next up is another 4-star, and it's Precious Little Sleep. This is the complete baby sleep guide for modern parents. Now, I didn't read this cover to cover, but we are trying to help Nora sleep properly at night. Here you go, little one. She needs her bubba. And I'm happy to say that this actually did really help us. And some of them are seemingly obvious things. We were letting her kind of sleep whenever she wanted to sleep, even in the evenings, and then wondered why she would only go to bed at 9 or 10. And it turned out that we were just doing that wrong. So now she can have her last nap anywhere between 2 and 3, but she has to wake up at 4. She has to wake up at 4. And if she does, when she is up after 4, she goes down at 7:30 and sleeps through the night, guys. This was a good book. I really liked it. It talks about how to deal with naps, how to deal with bedtime. Also, it talks about different issues that you can run into. I think there's something about teething in here and reflux and stuff like that. So it was really fantastic. So I gave it 4 stars, and I think this will be a resource we go back to over and over again. Again, I didn't read it cover to cover because she doesn't have reflux right now, so I didn't read that part. But I read the majority and really, really liked it. So now we're moving into 5-star reads, and I have 4 here. Guys, this was a good reading month. And the first book I want to talk to you about is my Book of Miracles, because I gave a YA book 5 stars, and that YA book is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is the first in a series. I've already bought the second because I loved this so much. This was such a fun book to read. Now, this was recommended to me by Sarah's Nightstand, and I just had so much fun reading this. This is a utopian world in which people don't die. We've gotten so far in our science that people don't need to die, but there are too many people in the world, and as you can imagine, so they've created this group of people called Scythes who go ahead and kill people off, and they select them. They're supposed to select them at random, and yeah, they kill people off, and you don't really have a choice in the matter, because if you run away, like, they'll track you down and kill you anyway, and also I think your family might be killed, or they're punished in some way. We followed 2 teenage people who are in training to be Scythes, and I really liked those characters. I liked that this wasn't too like romance heavy. I was worried that it was going to be super romance heavy, but it wasn't. And there were so many twists and turns in here that I did not see coming, which was so surprising and pleasant. So I loved this, and I'm definitely going to be reading Thunderhead. Sorry if the lighting has changed. I had to go and put her down in her swing. She needs to have a little nap. It's around 3, and anyway, you don't need to know all of that. But sorry if the lighting's changed, because I had to leave for a little bit. But we're back. So, 3 more books to talk about. All of them 5 stars. Miracle Creek is next. This was recommended to me by so many people. Emma from Drinking by My Shelf, Sophia from Sophia Reads, and then Impression Blends. They all recommended Miracle Creek to me. And oh my goodness, I'm so glad I read this. This was some of the best writing and one of the best stories that I've read in ages. This is about a community of people who are brought together because of this medical machinery called the Miracle Submarine. Now, a family has invested and own and run this Miracle Submarine, and it's basically a place where you get like a high dose of oxygen, and it's supposed to cure everything from infertility to autism to all sorts of things. And one day, the Miracle Submarine catches fire, and several people die in the Miracle Submarine. Some people are injured, and we are following a court case where one of the mothers of a child who was in the Miracle Submarine who died is being accused to having lit it ablaze on purpose. One of the things that I loved about this book is you read chapter by chapter from different people's perspectives. Everyone from the man who owns the Miracle Submarine to, you know, a mom whose child would go to this submarine for treatment. And I loved that each of the people had situations in which they were victims, and each of the people had situations where they were being prejudiced against other people. And it just is so much about the gray in life and how you never really know until you're in that situation. And it's so much about the importance of giving people grace. And this book did what I wanted Little Fires Everywhere to do. And I loved that book. But in that book, I felt like I was being steered in a certain direction, that there was ultimately someone in the right. And in this case, I felt like no one was really in the right. And no one was really hugely in the wrong either, but everyone was being impacted by people's naivete and ignorance. And I love this kind of book. I wasn't sure how I was going to get on with a courtroom mystery kind of book, and I ended up adoring this book. I love Angie Kim's writing. I think Angie Kim is actually a lawyer. She practiced as a trial lawyer at Williams and Connolly. So she knows her stuff, and I hope that she does more of this kind of book in the future, because I will read anything she writes. I really will. I loved this book. This is one of my favorite books now. Another book that was a little more fun, honestly. Like, that book was hard to take sometimes and very hard, just a difficult read at times. But this one was so much fun. This is My Sister the Serial Killer. This one was recommended to me by Emma from Drinking by My Shelf, and then also Simon's mom really loved it. This is about a woman whose sister is a serial killer. Her sister keeps saying that she has to kill these men in her life that are usually boyfriends because they've, you know, forced her into it, essentially. And our main character essentially has to cover up for her sister. She has to move the body, hide the body, discard the body. And she keeps doing this for her sister repeatedly. And she starts thinking, oh my goodness, maybe my sister isn't the victim here, but these men in her life are. And one day, her sister shows an interest in one of the doctors that she works with, and she actually has a huge crush on this guy. And so she's in this situation where she's like, how do I save this man? And it's about love and family and loyalty and what you'll do for your families. I will say that her sister in this was so entertaining. She just didn't care about anything in life. There's a scene in here where she's pretending to console one of her victim's sisters who's just like beside herself with worry about her brother. And she's sitting there licking an ice cream cone, just like, they're there. It was really funny. And I thought it was well written, and it's such an eventful storyline, and I really loved every second of this. I listened to this on audio, and it was fantastic, like really, really good. So yeah, that's My Sister the Serial Killer. Absolutely gave it 5 stars. And then last but not least is Blue Monday by Nikki French. This was suggested to me by Jen Campbell, and I have since then purchased quite a few from this series, and it's fantastic. So this follows a psychotherapist. She has this particular case where she has a client who comes in and has been dealing with infertility. He and his wife have been trying for a child for many, many years, and nothing's working, and he keeps dreaming of this redheaded boy. He is redheaded himself, and keeps wanting this boy. And then I think the next day, Frida reads in the paper that a redheaded boy of a very similar description has gone missing. And so she feels compelled to go to the police, and she gets completely involved in this case of this missing boy. Frida is such an interesting character. I love her because she's very reserved. She holds everyone in her life at a distance, and I know that in this series we're going to slowly uncover and unravel her many layers and find out why she's like that, and I can't wait to find out because I feel like it'll be a privilege getting to know her. I find her so interesting. She's someone who, after she has her day, she goes walking through London and she sorts out all of the patients that she sees and their issues, and she works through that. It's almost her own therapy by walking London, and she doesn't go to the lovely parts a lot of the time. She goes to the nitty-gritty, dirty parts of London. And then she comes home to her home, and it is the most hygge home in the world. the way that the home is described, the way that she lives in the home, making her tea, lighting the fire, coming in from a rainy, snowy, gross day outside. Like, she makes this so cozy. One thing I just found out today, because I have to tell you, I've already started reading the second book in the series today. One thing I found out today that I found interesting was this is actually a partnership. So Nikki French is not one person. It's a married couple, Nikki Gerard and Sean French. And they actually have books of their own. So that was interesting to me. Anyway, wonderful, wonderful book. It is cozy. It's my version of a cozy mystery. So there isn't anything specifically cozy about it. There's definitely like gruesome stuff in here. It is hard hitting sometimes. It's not Karen Slaughter hard hitting at all, but there is something cozy about this, and I absolutely love it. So yeah, that's Blue Monday. Those are all the books that I read in January. Amazing, amazing reading month. I am so happy that it's 2020. I think I'm going to have the best reading year yet. So let me know in the comments below, what is the best book that you read in January? I'd love to know, and I will talk with you soon. Bye, guys.